They called me the family disappointment for 15 years. I was the weird one, the artsy one, the still figuring it out one, until the day they stepped onto my private jet, until the moment they realized I was a billionaire. The invitation to the annual Whitmore family BBQ was sitting on my quartz counter untouched. The fancy gold script practically screamed family obligation under the morning Arizona sun. 15 years. That's how long I'd been invisible. Not estranged, not cut off, just conveniently overlooked. Like background music at a party there, but no one listens. And now they were all about to get a front row seat to everything I'd built in silence. My phone buzzed. The headline stared back at me like a full-circle slap. Forbes 30 under 40. Eliza Ray's virtual reality empire valued at $9.8 billion. The article was set to drop in 48 hours, 2 days before the reunion. So much for flying under the radar. Ms. Ray, my assistant's voice echoed through the intercom, smooth and unfazed. Your brother Caleb is on line 1 again. Of course he was. Caleb, Harvard MBA. Dad's right hand at Whitmore Financial golden boy extraordinaire. He hadn't called me in 3 years. Not until my name started trending. I sighed and picked up. Hey, Caleb. What the hell, Liza, he snapped. I just got off a call with CNBC. CNBC, Liza. They're asking how it feels to be the brother of a tech billionaire. I didn't even know you owned a company, let alone an empire. I sipped my coffee and stared out across the desert skyline from my Scottsdale penthouse. Guess you'll find out with everyone else, I said, keeping my tone light. Don't play games, he growled. You let us think you were broke. Mom thought you were still crashing on couches. Were you worried? I said, laughing softly. You mean all those Thanksgiving lectures about getting a real job? The pressure to work at Uncle Nate's insurance firm? That was concern. They were just trying to help you. No, Caleb, I said, letting the edge in. They were trying to fix me. Silence. He finally asked, how long? I walked to the floor-to-ceiling window, watching one of my 3 Teslas pull into the underground garage. Remember that studio apartment I moved into near Tempe? Yeah, he said slowly. When you started doing that digital art stuff? 15 years ago. He didn't say anything else. I smiled. You all thought I was broke, burning through my savings chasing pixels, but I'd already sold my first VR collection for $70,000 before I even moved in. What? 6 months later, I sold another for $210K. By the time Dad was lecturing me at Christmas about wasting my Wharton degree, I'd already crossed 7 figures. You borrowed money from Mom and Dad, he blurted. You drove that beat-up Civic for years. I actually laughed. I didn't borrow anything. I asked them to invest. They said no, loudly. As for the Civic, it was part of the plan. Low profile, minimum suspicion. He was quiet for a beat too long. And now he asked finally, how much are you worth? Forbes says $9.8 billion, I said. But we both know that's conservative. I have meetings lined up that could push it past 12. His breath caught. I imagined the math happening in real time. Caleb, the numbers guy, short-circuiting. I have to jump into a board call, I added casually. See you at the reunion. Click. I turned to the intercom. Paige. Yes, Ms. Ray. Is everything ready? The jet is prepped, island secured, Rolls-Royce pickups scheduled. Every family member will receive their personalized portfolio and NDA packets upon arrival. Perfect. I picked up the gilded invitation again, the one they sent assuming I was still living off expired ramen and wishful thinking. For 15 years, I let them see what they wanted: a failed artist. A poor soul with potential. Someone who could be pitied, lectured, dismissed. But this year, they'd see me, really see me. My phone buzzed again. Talia, little sister Liza. What is this Forbes thing? OMG, tell me it's a joke. I smiled and left her on read. Talia, who once cut me off mid-sentence to brag about her promotion at a mid-tier marketing firm, who used to make a show of paying the dinner tab because we all know Liza's a starving creative. The intercom buzzed again. Ms. Ray, your parents are on the line. I didn't even flinch. Tell them I'm in a meeting. I glanced at my Cartier watch, lips curving. And Paige, call the helipad. I'm taking the chopper to HQ today. As I grabbed my leather portfolio and sunglasses, my mind pulled back to the moment everything changed. The night I stopped asking for approval and started building quietly. I was 22, fresh out of Wharton, sitting at a long oak dinner table in my parents' Phoenix estate, trying to explain digital sculpting, blockchain-backed art licensing, and immersive VR galleries to people who thought Instagram filters were high-tech. Dad's voice dismissive and booming, digital art. That's not a career. That's a scam. Mom's patronizing smile. Honey, maybe it's time to apply to a real job. Something stable. Caleb's silence. Talia's eye roll. I had a $60,000 sale pending in my inbox and 3 VC meetings lined up. But instead of arguing, I stood up, kissed Mom's cheek, and said, "You're right. I'll figure it out." 2 weeks later, I moved into that rundown studio. They all assumed I was broke. They offered pity unsolicited job boards and lectures about fiscal responsibility. But while they were sending me job ads for office assistants, I was quietly building a revolution. Year 1 brutal, 18-hour days, cold calls, conferences, no safety net. Year 2, 1.4 million in sales. Quietly incorporated Ray Interactive. Year 5, 120 million valuation. Secretly purchased my first penthouse. Still drove the Civic. Still struggling. I stayed quiet. Let them look down on me. Let them underestimate me. Until now. The helicopter lifted into the sky, slicing through the Arizona heat. I watched the city shrink beneath me, a canvas of opportunity I'd painted on my own terms. In 2 days, they'd all arrive at the island I bought with the down payment from a single VR auction. This time, I wouldn't be seated at the kids' table. This time, I'd be holding the mic. And the menu. And the mansion and the receipts. I smiled. This was just the beginning. 2 mornings before the reunion, I stood on the rooftop helipad of my Scottsdale tower, wind tugging at my ponytail as the blades of my chopper whirled to life. From up here, the city didn't feel like judgment anymore. It felt like mine. 15 years of silence, of letting them believe I had nothing, had built this moment. The Forbes article had dropped hours earlier, and I was already watching the ripple effects spin out like dominoes. My inbox was chaos requests for interviews, partnerships, speaking engagements, a dozen venture firms that wouldn't even take my meetings 10 years ago now, sending pitch decks and desperate offers with subject lines in all caps. But buried between the business proposals and press requests was one subject line that gave me pause. "We need to talk before the reunion." It was from my dad. No emojis, no punctuation, just like him, precise, cold, always in control. Except this time he wasn't. I ignored it. Not out of malice, out of choice. Because for the first time I had the power to choose what conversations were worth having. That afternoon, I asked Paige to set up my lounge for an in-person guest. 10 minutes later, my mother walked through the door like she owned the place, pausing mid-step as her eyes adjusted to what she saw. Sunlight poured in through 2-story glass walls, bouncing off the polished marble floors. My Keith Haring original loomed above the fireplace, and just behind her, the skyline glittered like a reward. She turned slowly, her designer heels echoing as she walked toward the bar area. "Is this where you live?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. I handed her a cup of coffee, black, exactly how she likes it. "No, Mom. This is where I work. I keep a smaller place downtown for family visits." Less explaining that way. She blinked slowly, taking it all in, struggling to understand how the daughter she thought was barely getting by had been living like this all along. But the apartment, the Civic, the Thanksgiving. "When you asked for help with rent," I cut her off gently. "I never asked for help with rent. I asked if you wanted to invest. There's a difference." Her lips parted like she wanted to argue, then closed again when she realized she couldn't. "You lied to us," she said finally. "No," I said. "I let you believe what you already assumed. I tried to show you the truth more than once, but you weren't listening." She moved to the edge of the room, staring down at the city. "We thought you were lost. We worried. Your father, he said you were throwing your life away. That you didn't know what you were doing." I raised an eyebrow. "Did either of you ever Google my name? Come to one of my shows? Read the proposals I sent? No. You dismissed them without opening a single page." "I wasn't lost, Mom. I was just busy building something you couldn't see." She turned, holding back tears. "And what exactly did you build?" I walked over to my desk, pulled a leather folder from the drawer, and handed it to her. "This is the same proposal I gave Dad 3 years ago. He never even opened it. If he had invested the $1 million I asked for, it'd be worth $97 million today." Her hands trembled as she opened the folder and skimmed through the numbers. "He said you were looking for a handout," she whispered. I looked her in the eye. He was wrong. By the time she left, her voice had softened, her posture less rigid, and her tone was more curiosity than criticism. "Is everyone coming to the reunion?" she asked on her way out. "Everyone," I said, "and we're not doing it at the resort this year. I moved it, bought out a private island, flew the entire staff there last week. Custom menus, designer accommodations, personalized folders in each room. She looked stunned. You bought an island? I nodded. Last year. Closed the deal after our largest platform expansion. Thought it'd be a nice place for everyone to reflect. She hesitated. Reflect on what I smiled. On everything they missed. That evening, I reviewed the final presentation for the welcome dinner. A highlight reel of every exhibit, every sale, every investor that turned me down, and what those investments were worth now. I didn't want revenge, I wanted acknowledgement. Not from the world I had that already, but from the people who dismissed me when it still mattered. This wasn't about proving a point, it was about telling the truth in full color on my terms. The next morning, Paige handed me a tablet as I stepped onto the tarmac where my jet waited. Final prep checklist. Ms. Ray. All family members confirmed for pickup. Staff rotation scheduled. And yes, the helipad letters have been painted. I smirked. Visible from the sky. From orbit, she said without missing a beat. An hour later, the Rolls-Royces began arriving. First came my parents dressed impeccably, but with that unmistakable stiffness of people walking into unknown territory. Then Caleb, jaw tight, followed by Talia and a string of cousins. They stepped out one by one, trying to mask the shock as they took in the jet gleaming on the private runway. The lettering across the side of the fuselage read, Ray Interactive in brushed titanium, as subtle as it was undeniable. My father stepped forward, trying to maintain authority. Eliza, this is impressive, but a little excessive, isn't it? I met his gaze calm. No, the resort would have been excessive. This is necessary. Talia muttered something about how ridiculous it was, then snapped a selfie beside the jet. Of course she did. As they boarded, I watched them take in the interiors. Gold accents, velvet seats, a 20-year Glenlivet already poured in crystal tumblers. My aunt gasped when she saw the Picasso over the lounge sofa. Is that real? She whispered. Yes, I said. Picked it up in London last year. My father cleared his throat again. We should talk. We will, I said, taking my seat. When we land. Until then, enjoy the flight. There's truffle risotto and a few surprises waiting on board. 2 hours later, we descended through a spray of clouds onto my island, my actual, legally owned island, 300 acres of oceanfront luxury, where I'd built a boutique resort from scratch. They stared out the windows, jaws slack, as we circled the helipad. The words, Ray Island, emblazoned in massive silver letters on the landing pad below. Surrounding it, digital screens rotated through my art collections, each paired with a sale price that made their knees weak. 3.2 melons, 9.5 melons, $27. Each figure a sentence in a story they never bothered to read. When we landed, I led the group into the grand entry hall. Floor-to-ceiling glass. White stone imported from Greece. Sculptures illuminated in motion-reactive lighting. Welcome to the family reunion, I said as staff handed out room keys and customized folders. Each suite includes a little background reading. I recommend going through it before dinner. No one spoke. They took their folders, their keys, their carefully wrapped jaws, and disappeared into their rooms. I gave them 2 hours. And I was just getting started. By the time dinner was called, the mood had shifted. When they arrived earlier, they carried assumptions like luggage. This was just a display, a temporary flex, something I'd splurged on after a few good years. But those folders I left in their suites were weighted. Not with paper, but with truth. Every person who had ever doubted me was now sitting with numbers they couldn't ignore, charts, projections, screenshots, timestamps, missed deals, unanswered emails, ignored proposals. They were beginning to realize this wasn't luck. It was legacy, built slowly, patiently, without their permission or applause. When they walked into the dining hall, there was no chatter. Just the quiet rustle of custom place cards and a room so luxurious it felt like a scene from a dream they weren't invited into until now. The walls shimmered with programmable LED art pulled straight from my platform. The dinner table stretched the length of the room, laid out with platinum cutlery, crystal water goblets and centerpieces made of glass and light. But the real centerpiece was the framed Forbes article mounted across each wall, lit like art inescapable from any seat in the room. My father entered last. He looked around, jaw tense, trying to reclaim some semblance of control. Eliza, this is extraordinary, he said, voice carefully measured. We had no idea how successful you've become. I smiled politely, gestured for everyone to sit. I know, that was the point. Dinner began with silence broken only by the quiet clinking of forks. For the first time in years, no one knew how to talk to me. I used to be the one they tolerated out of pity, the one they saw as unstable, unpredictable, whimsical. But now the power dynamic had flipped and they were feeling it in their posture, their hesitation, their lack of questions. I stood up slowly, lifted my wine glass, and let my voice carry. Before dessert, I want to walk you through a little something I prepared. The lights dimmed slightly. Panels in the ceiling shifted, revealing high-definition screens that descended with a smooth hiss. A curated timeline began to play. On one side, moments from my journey, first sale, first investor, first solo exhibition. On the other, direct quotes from my family, dismissals, mockery, polite silences that said more than words ever could. 2010, digital art isn't real art. Result, 70,000 sale within a week. 2013, you need structure, a job with benefits. Result, company valuation hits 8 million. 2016, at least Caleb's doing well. Result, international expansion, 11 new hires. 300% revenue spike. 2019, crypto. You're going to lose everything. Result, acquisition of 3 startups, 320 million in assets. They watched in stunned silence as every doubt they'd ever expressed was paired with a success they never saw coming. I didn't gloat. I didn't have to. The truth spoke for itself. When the video ended, I took my seat again and let the silence hang. My father cleared his throat. "We were wrong," he said, and the weight of those words echoed. "I didn't understand what you were building. I thought you were wasting your potential." "I'm sorry." For a second, I just looked at him, remembering every birthday he missed, every time he introduced Caleb as the future of the family, every time he cut me off mid-sentence when I spoke about my work. "I didn't need your validation," I said, "but you could have at least shown interest." My mom placed her hand on mine. "We just didn't know how to support what we didn't understand." I met her eyes. "You didn't try to understand." Talia finally spoke, her voice small. "All those times I joked about you being broke, I didn't know." I gave her a slow nod. "And yet you enjoyed the image. The one where you were the stable one. The responsible one. The one who picked up the check while I smiled and let you feel generous." She looked down, cheeks flushed, fingers tightening around her glass. Caleb said nothing. He just stared at the centerpiece like he wanted to disappear into it. And maybe he did. He was the one who got everything handed to him, the fast-track career, the funding, the praise. But now he was sitting across from a woman who built a tech empire out of rejection, and no spreadsheet could save him from that comparison. After dessert, I stood again, not to scold or shame, but to finish what I started. "I didn't bring you here for revenge," I said. "I brought you here because this is the first time I'm not ashamed of how I got here. I used to shrink at family dinners, let you believe I was struggling, because it was easier than explaining something you'd already decided to disapprove of. I stopped talking about my work, about what lit me up. I played the role of the lost artist because it was more comfortable for you than accepting I'd taken a different path and made it work." I paused, looked around the table, and softened my tone. "But I'm not hiding anymore. Not out of pride, out of peace. Because I deserve to take up space in this family without having to prove I belong." My mother's eyes welled up. She nodded slowly, lips trembling. "You were never lost, were you?" I shook my head. "No. I was just busy becoming someone you wouldn't recognize." That night, after everyone had gone back to their suites, I walked the shoreline alone. The moonlight poured across the waves like liquid silver. For the first time in years, I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I wasn't even thinking about what they owed me. I was thinking about how good it felt to finally stand still in my own skin. Paige joined me quietly, carrying a tablet. "Final report for today," she said. "Social mentions up 300%. Stock spiked 9% after the Forbes feature. Your team confirmed the beta launch next month is on track." I nodded. "And the gallery expansion in Tokyo signed this morning." I took the tablet, scanned the data, and felt something settle in my chest that I hadn't felt in a long time. Certainty. Control. Not just over my company, but over the narrative. Over who I was allowed to be. I built this life in the shadows of their expectations. And now I didn't need to shout to be seen. I just needed to step into the light they never thought I could reach. Back in the villa, I found a note slid under my door in my dad's handwriting. I didn't see it before. I see it now. I hope it's not too late to learn. I placed the note beside a photograph of my first studio, a cracked window, plastic folding chair, and a cheap lamp. I remember sitting in that room alone, scared but stubborn. And now, 15 years later, that same girl had built something so massive it couldn't be ignored, not even by the people who once couldn't be bothered to look. The next morning felt different. Lighter, but not quite peaceful. More like that moment just after a thunderstorm when everything is clearer, but the ground is still soaked. I stood on the balcony outside my suite, coffee in hand, watching the ocean move in slow, deliberate waves. Behind me, the villa buzzed with the quiet shuffle of staff preparing breakfast, but inside my chest there was still a tension I hadn't fully named. I had shown them who I really was. I had pulled back the curtain they chose to ignore for years. But now, the question hung in the air, what would they do with that truth? When I joined the others at the open-air dining terrace, they were already seated, plates full, conversation low and careful. The dynamic had shifted, like everyone was trying to figure out where they stood now that the hierarchy they were used to no longer applied. Caleb gave me a curt nod. Talia avoided eye contact. My father said good morning with a voice that sounded unfamiliar, less authoritative, more tentative. My mother smiled soft and almost shy, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to speak without permission. I sat down quietly and let the moment breathe. Halfway through the meal, Caleb finally looked up from his phone and spoke. I read the folder again last night, he said, voice level but edged with something unsettled. It's hard to wrap my head around how we missed it. How I missed it. I sipped my orange juice, not rushing to fill the silence. He continued. All these years I thought you were just drifting. But you were running an empire. I nodded. I was doing both. Drifting away from your expectations while building something of my own. He set his fork down, the sound small but sharp against the marble tabletop. I think I owe you an apology. I tilted my head, not smiling, not frowning, just waiting. Not just for doubting you, he added, but for making you feel like you had to disappear to be taken seriously. I see it now. You shrunk yourself so we could feel big. That's on us. Talia blinked eyes wide like she hadn't expected him to say any of that. Honestly, neither had I. For a second, I didn't know how to respond. Then I said quietly, I stopped showing you what I was building because every time I did, I left feeling smaller. That wasn't by accident. That was by design. My father's voice broke in deep and steady. I think we all need to look at the role we played in that. There was no grand speech, no outpouring of emotion. Just a slow, quiet unraveling. My mom reached across the table and placed her hand gently over mine. I always thought I was protecting you by trying to steer you towards something safe, but I was really just protecting my own comfort. Your dreams scared me. They made me feel obsolete. I didn't want you to fail, but I was also afraid of what it would mean if you succeeded without our help. I didn't pull my hand away. You were afraid to lose control, I said. And I get it, but your fear made me invisible. She nodded slowly, blinking away tears. You were never invisible, Eliza. We just never saw clearly. The truth is, I wasn't angry anymore. I'd carried that weight for so long it had become part of my posture, but here on this island I built with my own hands and vision, I didn't need to carry it anymore. The need to be understood had been replaced by something quieter and stronger, peace with who I had become with or without their understanding. Later that afternoon, I took my parents on a walk through the gallery pavilion. The walls shimmered with interactive pieces from my early collection's digital sculptures that moved with the viewer's gaze, ambient light installations that responded to breath. My father stood still in front of a piece called Echo Drift, one I created in year 3. It was the first time I coded a reactive environment, something that translated sound waves into shifting color. I don't understand how it works, he said, not dismissive, just genuinely curious, but it's beautiful. I looked at him for a long moment. That's how most people feel about their kids' dreams. They don't have to fully understand them to support them. He exhaled slowly, then nodded. You deserved more than support. You deserved belief. That moment didn't undo the years that came before, but it felt like something real. Not a fix, a beginning. In the evening, I gathered everyone for a sunset bonfire on the western edge of the island. The staff had arranged loungers, blankets, small tables with drinks and fresh seafood, and speakers quietly playing a lo-fi mix I'd curated myself. As the sun dipped beneath the horizon, I stood by the flames and watched the orange light flicker across my family's faces. They were quieter than I'd ever seen them. Not from discomfort anymore, but from reflection. That's when my cousin Nina finally broke the silence. You know, I always wondered what happened to you. You were so passionate in college. Then you just disappeared. I nodded. I didn't disappear. I just stopped performing. She tilted her head. And now I'm here, I said. Fully. Someone asked if I would ever go back to how things were before. I didn't even hesitate. No. Because this version of me was always real. You just didn't see her until the numbers forced you to look. The next morning, a few relatives left early, clearly uncomfortable with the shift. Not everyone likes being reminded of what they failed to recognize. But those who stayed, they started asking questions about the technology, the business, the art. Real questions with curiosity instead of skepticism. It wasn't validation I wanted, it was respect. And for the first time, I felt it beginning to grow in the space between us. My dad approached me before the final breakfast. He wasn't dressed like himself, no blazer, no stiff slacks, just a linen shirt and old boat shoes I hadn't seen in years. You've built something incredible, he said quietly. And I know no apology can make up for the years we didn't show up for you. But I hope this trip is the first step in earning your trust again. I nodded, not out of forgiveness, but out of recognition. It's not about trust. It's about starting over with honesty. This is who I am. And if you want to be in my life, you'll have to accept all of me, not just the parts that make you comfortable. He smiled faintly. That's fair. It was the first time I believed him. As everyone boarded the jet that afternoon, the mood was softer. Less tension, more awareness. They looked around the plane with different eyes, not just awe at the wealth, but an understanding that it had been earned piece by piece without shortcuts or favors. Caleb stopped before stepping onto the stairs. For what it's worth, he said, you were always the smartest one in the room. We just weren't smart enough to notice. I gave a quiet laugh. You weren't supposed to. That was the plan. He raised an eyebrow. So what now? I looked out at the water one last time before we left. Now we go home. And next time you think about calling someone a failure, maybe pause and ask what they're building in silence. The jet sliced through the clouds like it had nothing to prove, gliding above the ocean with quiet assurance, much like how I felt sitting in the back watching my family absorb everything they had just witnessed. No one spoke loudly. Conversations were hushed, contemplative, a noticeable contrast from the usual Whitmore family energy, boisterous, dominant, self-congratulatory. Now there was hesitation in their voices, a newfound humility that didn't need to be called out because it was written on every face. They weren't just reacting to wealth. This wasn't about luxury or numbers anymore. It was about truth. They had seen something they couldn't deny, that everything they once dismissed in me had been the very foundation of something greater than any of them ever achieved. And I didn't do it to compete. I did it to survive, to reclaim myself from the constant pull to conform, to prove quietly that I didn't need their belief to become real. Back in Scottsdale, my schedule resumed the moment my feet touched the tarmac. Paige handed me a revised itinerary. Half my executive team was already on site prepping for a series of investor meetings, and our newest acquisition was set to close within the week. But even as I slipped back into work mode, something had changed. My family hadn't just witnessed my life, they'd been invited into it. And for once, they didn't bring their judgment. They brought curiosity, even if it was awkward and uncertain. That mattered more than I expected. Still, I didn't let my guard drop completely. Some lessons take too long to unlearn. And if I'd learned anything from 15 years in silence, it's that forgiveness is a process, not a performance. A few days later, my father requested a private meeting. Not over dinner, not in his office, at my headquarters. That was a first. When he arrived, he looked around with the kind of expression I hadn't seen from him since I was a kid, showing him school projects, genuine intrigue with a pinch of discomfort. I led him through the main floor, past the open-plan design wing, and into one of the executive lounges. He sat slowly, eyes trailing over the glass walls, the real-time data dashboards, the motion-reactive artwork that filled the space. You built something I don't even fully understand, he said quietly, but I know it's brilliant. I didn't respond immediately. I let the silence work its way into the space between us, softer now than it used to be. I never needed you to understand, I said. I just wanted you to stop dismissing what didn't fit your mold. He nodded, and I saw it, then regret, not just for the past, but for how small he'd made his own world by refusing to look outside of it. He handed me a folder, the old-school kind with paper contracts and handwritten notes. Delgado Capital wants to talk, he said. They asked if I could facilitate a warm introduction. They see now what you're building. They want in. I stared at the folder, not touching it, not because I didn't want the opportunity, but because I wanted him to say what I knew was buried underneath the paperwork. They passed on me 3 years ago, I said. Told me I was too risky. An art company pretending to be tech. He nodded again. And now they're pretending they always saw it. I finally smiled. That's the game. But I'm not here to play it on their terms anymore. He didn't push, didn't defend them, didn't offer a pitch. He just leaned back and said, "You'll decide what's right. You always did." I just didn't see it then. It wasn't an apology. It was an acknowledgement. And for someone like him, that carried more weight than any rehearsed sorry. Later that night, I sat alone in my home office, scrolling through the slideshow we'd used on the island, revisiting the moments that had once felt like failures. Rejections, ignored emails. Dismissive remarks the night my dad told me that art was a hobby, not a career. It hit differently now, not because it didn't hurt anymore, but because I no longer needed it to hurt to remember it mattered. Pain wasn't the point anymore. Growth was. And in every overlooked version of me, there was a seed of something unstoppable. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was claiming narrative. There's a difference. One is built on bitterness, the other on reclaiming your voice. The following weekend, I hosted a private launch event at our newest immersive gallery. Invitations were limited to investors, collaborators, a few hand-picked press outlets, and surprisingly, my family. I hadn't decided to include them until the morning of the RSVP deadline, but something in me wanted them to see this side too. Not just the money, the vision, the artistry, the soul of the company I'd poured myself into. They showed up on time, all of them, dressed in quiet elegance, more subdued than I'd ever seen them, and clearly still adjusting to the idea that I was the one with the power to grant access now. As I walked them through the experience, watching them react to each piece, some interactive, some hauntingly still, I realized something important. This wasn't about proving I'd won. It was about showing them what they'd missed when they refused to look beyond the image of me they preferred. The gallery's final room was a mirrored installation titled Legacy Unseen. As they stepped inside, sensors activated layers of animation that revealed images of my early work beneath the surface. Accompanying voiceovers, snippets of interviews, monologues from old voice memos, even recordings of conversations they never knew I'd saved, played in overlapping loops. I watched as they paused, listening to a 24-year-old version of me talking about building something no one believed in. My mother had tears in her eyes. Caleb stood perfectly still. My father closed his eyes and just breathed like he was hearing my voice for the first time without trying to fix it. As they exited the room, no one said much, but they didn't need to. The silence wasn't awkward. It was reverent. A kind of quiet that settles when something true has finally been spoken, even if not aloud. As they left the gallery that night, my father shook my hand and looked me in the eye. "You're not just a success," he said. "You're a creator, a visionary. I didn't raise you to become this, but I'm proud you did anyway." My voice didn't tremble when I replied, "You didn't raise me for this, but you did give me the rejection I needed to find my own direction. So thank you for everything, even the hard parts." That night, I poured myself a glass of wine, walked barefoot onto the terrace, and looked up at the Arizona sky. I wasn't thinking about revenge or legacy or validation. I was thinking about silence, how it can be a prison or a sanctuary depending on who controls it. And for the first time in my life, the silence was mine. Not because I had nothing to say, but because I no longer needed to say it to be heard. 3 weeks after the gallery launch, I received a message from my father. Not a forwarded article, not a business pitch, not a disguised attempt at small talk. Just a simple line, handwritten and scanned, like he'd taken the time to make it personal. I used to think control was love. I'm learning now that letting go is harder, but maybe more honest. I read it 3 times before closing the message, not because I needed to savor it, but because I wanted to understand what it meant to receive something without feeling obligated to reply. That was new. That was peace. Not long after, Talia sent me a photo of the framed article from Forbes hanging in her home office. No caption, just the picture. I stared at it for a moment, surprised not by the gesture, but by the fact that it came without commentary. No sarcasm, no jokes, just acknowledgement. And then there was Caleb, who emailed a proposal to partner on a non-profit tech accelerator. He didn't ask for equity. He didn't even ask for a meeting. He simply wrote, "You're the blueprint. If there's a way to build something that brings others up the way you built yourself, I want in it. I didn't say yes immediately. I waited, not out of ego, out of integrity. I needed to make sure his intentions matched the offer. But it was a start. A quiet rebalancing of a story that had been lopsided for far too long. As life moved forward, I didn't retreat into privacy the way I used to. I didn't shrink or protect or vanish to avoid being misunderstood. I had no more need for disguise. People knew who I was now, and more importantly, I knew who I was even when no one was watching. Ray Interactive went public that fall. It wasn't just the biggest IPO in our sector, it was a statement. A culmination of every doubted instinct, every rejected pitch, every time I was called a dreamer like it was an insult. I stood on that stage in New York, bell in hand, not thinking of the press cameras or investors watching. I was thinking about the apartment in Tempe, the cracked windows, the way my fingers used to tremble from coding through the night, the way I used to whisper ideas out loud just to make them real. That girl deserved this moment more than anyone else. I rang the bell not for victory but for closure. Not to prove I'd made it, but to mark that I never needed anyone else's permission to begin. Later that week, I hosted a private dinner with my executive team at the original studio where I first launched. It had been renovated, of course, modernized and elevated, but I kept the foundation exactly the same. The floors still creaked in the corners. The light still hit the back wall just right during golden hour. I stood up after dessert, raised a glass, and thanked them, not just for believing in the company, but for believing in me when I was still learning how to believe in myself. Afterward, I walked through the building alone, hands brushing the walls like I was touching a part of my old self one last time. Not to hold on, just to say thank you. Because none of this was built out of rage or revenge. It was built out of resilience, the slow, steady kind that grows in silence when no one's clapping. 1 month later, I found myself back at my parents' house in Phoenix for the first time in years. They'd invited me for a quiet dinner. No extended family, no holiday, just us. The house felt smaller, like it had been stretched and pulled in my memories, then snapped back into reality. I walked past the hallway where they used to hang my brother's framed degrees, past the den where they once held a silent intervention about my life direction, past the dining table where I'd first been told to get serious. And now, I was walking through that same house not to prove anything, not to confront, but to simply show up as myself, unchanged and unafraid. My mother opened the door and smiled, real and warm and unguarded. She hugged me longer than I expected. My father stood behind her, still composed, but softer somehow. They had set the table with care, my favorite dishes, linen napkins, candles already lit. Not grand, not performative, thoughtful. We sat down, and for the first time there were no awkward silences, no pointed questions about career moves or relationship status. Just conversation. Real easy human. Halfway through the meal, my dad said something that stayed with me. You changed everything without raising your voice. That takes more strength than I ever knew. I nodded because he was right. There had been no shouting, no dramatic walkouts, just decisions, just boundaries, just time. As I drove home that night, the city lights flickering in the rear view, I felt something close to stillness. The kind of calm that doesn't need to be earned or defended. The kind that shows up when you've finally made peace with your own story. Not the version people wrote for you, the one you chose to tell. Back at the penthouse, I poured a glass of wine, walked barefoot onto the terrace, and opened the group chat with my team. They were buzzing about a new project, a global education platform that would make immersive tech more accessible to underfunded schools. I smiled, typed back a few notes, and sent over final approval. That's what it was always about. Not just building for myself, but for the people coming next. The ones being doubted right now. The ones learning to code in borrowed basements. The ones being told their dreams are impractical. I built this world so they wouldn't have to explain themselves the way I had to. So they could just create. Loudly, proudly, without apology. A few hours later, I got a text from my mom. A photo of her in front of Legacy Unseen, the mirrored installation from my gallery now displayed in a museum across the country. Her message read, "Every time someone walks into this room, I hope they see what I missed for too long." I stared at the screen for a while, not crying, not overwhelmed, just quietly grateful that the story didn't end where the pain began, that it kept going, that it healed in places I didn't think were capable of healing. The next morning, I woke early, walked to my office window, and watched the sun rise across the skyline. I didn't feel like a billionaire. I didn't feel like a rebel or an outlier or even an icon. I felt like a girl who kept a promise to herself when no one else believed she could. And now, years later, the promise had become real. Not because I forced anyone to see me, but because I refused to stop seeing myself. That's what success really is. Not applause, not headlines, not revenge, but freedom. The quiet kind. The kind that lets you breathe without bracing. The kind that lets you show up fully. The kind that never asks you to shrink. So if you're reading this and they've called you a failure, if they've boxed you in, cut you out, underestimated your fire, let them. Let them talk. Let them laugh. Let them forget. And then build something so powerful in the dark that when the lights finally come on, you don't need to say a word, because the work will speak, the truth will glow. And when they finally look at you with recognition, you won't be angry. You'll be whole. You won't need to clap back. You'll already be rising. And that I've learned is the sweetest kind of revenge. Story 2. My own family did not just support my ex-wife after my divorce. They essentially took her place of mine. They informed me and invited her to Thanksgiving. You performed a few songs, as long as you don't say anything. Additionally, avoid making one of your pitiful scenes. Don't worry, I responded. Eating with strangers is preferable to sitting with traitors. I made a single move 5 days later that completely blew everything up. Sobbing, my cousin called me. Everything is disintegrating. Please assist us in fixing it. For that reason, I'm just going to post this here. To be honest, I'm still furious and would like to know whether I'm the only one who finds this crazy. Simply scroll if family drama bores you. You'll likely understand, though, if you've ever felt like your own family put you on mute. Steer clear of trash BC. Really, I don't know whether anyone finds it. The peace has been maintained. For background, I was divorced about 1.5 years ago, which was terrible, but not startling. Crew, Opal, my ex. We were together for over 6 years. I won't sit here and blame her for everything. I mean, I can be a little direct. Maybe I overuse the sarcasm, but I'm not really into the whole let's talk about feelings for hours thing. Opal's problem was that she was constantly in need of approval from others. In an attempt to be the nice guy in every circumstance, she would practically twist herself into a pretzel. Marriage is a sign of equality, then. It turns out that they are not a good fit. In any case, this is the strange part. Most individuals find it difficult when their family is broken up, but they still can't recall who their real biological relatives are. Not my gang. Specifically, my mom, Faith, and my cousin Tucker. Opal was taken in by them like if she were their own. Also my Aunt Lorraine. And I don't mean to imply that we're being polite to the children. We don't possess any. I'm the mailman, and she's just behaving like she's still one of them. It's crazy. It was the group chat that caught my attention first, as if I was the only one. Lorraine, my sister, Tammy, my mother, and Tucker. All of a sudden, there are Opals. All of them are sending pictures from this pointless pottery night. Additionally, I see Opal's mug before everyone else's. Nobody even inquires about my desire to go. Then I see my own cousin post a selfie with an Opal tag, and everyone comments on it like she's the fun aunt, and I think, oh, we're having a pumpkin patch day. My phone is now lit up, but only because I can read all of their texts. I assume that no one is speaking to me in BC. In any case, perhaps they are only being courteous. Perhaps they find it awkward as well. NGL. I started turning off the chat since it was annoying me every time I watched them all interacting with her as if nothing had occurred. Approximately 2 weeks before to Thanksgiving. My mother is calling me. She is speaking in a serious tone as if she were about to inform me that someone has passed away or something. I simply ask, "What's up?" She then goes on to talk about how stressful things had been. Additionally, she wants Thanksgiving to be drama-free. In fact, she says you are welcome, but only provided you don't say anything. And please refrain from pulling one of your pitiful scenes. Since July, I haven't even seen these folks. Which scenes? So why would I be the issue here, I ask. Well, you know how you get, she adds. Arguments are inevitable. Opal only desires tranquility. I chuckle and inquire, so Opal is coming then. She responds by saying that she is obviously family and that she has been a huge help to all of us. How can I get support? My mother becomes very defensive and begins to babble about how Opal has been helping her out around the home and being there for her when she wanted to vent about me not calling enough, among other things. She even goes so far as to say that Opal truly listened as opposed to you. So I'm just finished now. I'd rather sit with traitors and eat with strangers, I remark. She ends the call. Just ends the call. That's nothing new. Since I was a child, she has slammed the phone down on me. When she doesn't want to cope, it's her move. After that, I text Tucker and ask, "Are you serious? Don't make it about you," he simply advises. Opal has experienced a great deal. As in, what have I been missing? Have I passed away? And nobody informed me. I call my sister Tammy in an attempt to get some genuine answers. The only one who doesn't act as though I don't exist is her. She hardly participates, though, since she's so over it. "Look, Opal is just a pleasure to be around," she explains. She assists and bakes. She gives everyone the impression that they are not being overly cautious. "You know how Mom is," she says. "You clash all the time. She enjoys hearing confirmation that she is correct. You didn't do that. Opal does." Tammy responds, "I don't know," when I ask if she thinks I should just roll over. "Perhaps just don't come. Give them some peace, like being ill. Regards." So I just kind of IDK existing for the next few days. I keep getting group chat notifications. Opal's making pies. Opal's helping Lorraine with her garden. Opal's teaching my mom how to use her new phone. Like I'm not even mad at Opal. She's just doing what she always does, which is get everyone on her side by being helpful and sweet and letting everyone dump their problems on her. My family, though, that's another story. I think the reason they side with her is honestly because she's just easy for them. She never calls anyone out. She never pushes back. She'll literally listen to a 2-hour rant about how Tucker's ex stole his air fryer, and she'll make him banana bread. Meanwhile, I push back when my mom says something out of line. I tell Tucker to stop whining. I don't pretend everything's fine when it's not, so yeah, I guess I'm difficult, but at least I'm not fake. So Thanksgiving comes around, and I'm sitting there in my apartment scrolling through my phone, and I get a snap from Lorraine table all set up right at the center holding my mom's hand. Everyone's smiling. I see my own spot at the table. Empty. It's not even subtle. I get it now. I'm not family and fine. If they want to pick Opal over me, that's on them. But I'm not just going to take it. I'm not going to sit here and let them act like I don't exist or like I'm some villain in my own life. So I start making a list in my notes app, just writing down every time Opals are home. Helped my family with something that used to be my job. Every time they ask her to do something I used to do every time my mom lets her handle stuff that's supposed to be family only. I'm not even sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but it feels good to keep track. I'm not about to let them just erase me. I'm not going to be the guy who sits at home every holiday while my ex takes my place. If they want a traitor at their table, they can have her. But they're not getting both of us. So yeah, that's where I'm at, Azat. Not sure what my next move is yet, but I'm done being the nice guy. If anyone's got advice, drop it, BK. I'm not going to just sit here and watch my family get played. Not now. Next, it's probably going to get ugly, but TBH, I'm ready for it. One update. So after that Thanksgiving mess, I started noticing stuff I guess I'd been ignoring. Like stuff that didn't even fully click until I was sitting there scrolling and realizing I'd basically been scrubbed out of my family's life. And Opal got my invite. I mean, I'm not talking about just the holiday, I mean everything. There's this thing where when you're suddenly the outsider, you start seeing all the little ways you were being replaced for months. I'd get texts from Tucker about random family things, but then I'd see on his stories that Opal's there hanging out at my mom's bringing food like she's hosting, not visiting. She's got her own mug at my mom's house that's new. She never even drank coffee when we were together. My cousin straight up posted a video of Opal showing Lorraine how to set up some TV thing. Like she lives there. My aunt's got her on speed dial now. It's always Opal. So helpful. Opal's got the best ideas. Opal. This Opal, that. Like I'm not even a footnote. I asked Tucker what the deal was with that, and he just says it's not that deep, man. Opal's simply good at computer stuff. You know Mom's hopeless with remotes. Yeah, certainly. But she also never phoned me for aid after the divorce. I suppose I'm not useful anymore. Then there was this incident with the cabin. So my grandma left this home upstate to the family, right? Not only my family, but it's split between myself, Tucker, and Tammy. For years, I was always the one handling the bills and upkeep. Not that nobody said thanks. So I go check the group chat for the cabin after ignoring it for a bit. And it's all Opal's arranging a summer getaway. Opal's obtained bids for repairs. Opal is talking about making it more friendly. I click back and find my name's not even in the debate over who gets to utilize the apartment for July. No one even pings me for the vote even though I co-own it. Dude, what's up with the cabin? I text Tucker. He simply dismisses it. Opal claims to be assisting. Her plans are more popular with everyone. In any case, you're too busy. When I contacted Tammy about it, she responded, "Yeah, I tried to say you should be included, but Mom and Lorraine said it's just easier with Opal." You know how it is, she says. Mom claims that scheduling with you is always challenging. Opal simply handles things. Tammy only sighs and responds, I know, but I'm tired of fighting about it. When I remind her that the deed really bears my name, she doesn't even support me, just refuses to deal. I began to inquire around, but nobody really had a direct response. Opal's been such a blessing, Lorraine simply states. She is keeping the family together, and for that you should be thankful. According to my mother, things may be different if you simply showed up more often. When I bring up the fact that you brought my ex to Thanksgiving and instructed me to be silent, she just shifts the topic. Claims that I have to make things about myself all the time. It's really crazy. Since Opal never says no, I understand that she's easy for them. She constantly gets small presents bakes and does the whole, oh, let me help you act like she did this with my friends too thing. She consistently made herself the person who everyone save my family wanted to invite. I suppose I simply assumed people would remember who I am, but they like simplicity, not truthful. Then I saw something that really irritated me. As a result, my mother frequently requested me to assist her with her expenditures, such as online purchases, auto-pay setup, and so on. I continued to do it for a bit after the divorce, but then she said Opal had everything under control. Tucker has now informed me that Opal has gained access to my mother's accounts. I used to do things like handle passwords in detail. I ask my mother, are you serious? You're now giving your money to my ex. All she says is that Opal is reliable. You are constantly so pessimistic. She gives me a sense of control. That's a terrible idea, I tell her. She simply lashes out at me. Says, I can come over and help if I'm really worried, but only if I can be nice for a while. I began making a point of retaining receipts, both physically and figuratively, after telling her that I'm not playing that game. I have all of the notes and screenshots. Every time Opal calls regarding the cottage, she mentions helping out with family matters. I'm never even informed of the plans she makes with my family. Even Opal's actions don't make me angry. I'm upset with my family for allowing it to occur. Even if I'm not perfect, I never imagined that they would just remove me in order to have someone who would never disagree with them. Lorraine then sends me a direct message asking if I can approve some papers for the cottage. What paperwork? I ask. She gives me this document which reads, we need your information to help everyone set up new auto-pay for utilities. I inquire as to why Lorraine seems protective when Opal handles the money. It's true that she's the only one keeping up. You're late all the time. You don't respond. You're too occupied. I genuinely pay my share each year, I say. Nobody once mentioned that it was late. Well, Opal will take care of it, she responds. Just sign now. When I get at her apartment to speak, she lashes out, accuses me of creating drama, and slams the door when I tell her I won't sign anything until I've seen it. After saying, just sign it, Tucker texts me. Quit making things difficult. It seems to be everywhere now. Opal is involved in something that I used to do. Every family gathering, every group chat, every stupid Christmas email. She is present. I'm not. I even asked my mother if I may stop over and discuss the cabin-related matters. Only if you're not going to argue, she says. In any case, Opal is coming over to assist me with my taxes. I simply hung up. That's all. Really, I'm not doing this. I believe that the reason my family treats me this way is because even before Opal, I never cooperated. I've always been the person that speaks his mind, confronts the lads, and doesn't act like everything is okay when it's a mess. Opal. She's the kind of person who will nod, smile, and give you cookies while you disparage the person who really completed the task. My family therefore obtains what they desire. It's never awkward when someone doesn't push back. I suppose that's what they value. Just a peaceful, argument-free life, even if it means feigning my non-existence. As I sit there and watch this whole thing unfold, I realize that I'm going to be cut off from everything if I don't intervene, financially as well as emotionally. Like the family accounts, the cabin, everything. Opal will simply be allowed to take over, not taking place. I'll sign anything they ask me to the next time. I'm bringing everything I have with me. Nothing will be signed by me. I'm not going to back down. I refuse to allow them to alter history. Opal thus becomes the protagonist, and I'm simply the irate person who vanished. I've had enough of silence. They're going to get a fight if they want one. Therefore, fasten your seatbelt because I'm going to make it impossible for anyone to ignore you. Opal can be had by my family if they so choose, but they will not receive my portion. No way. Are you prepared for the third round? The second update? Have you ever had the impression that people are talking about you but you are unable to provide evidence? I am not referring to paranoia, just these tangential feelings. Your family next year, for example. The strange ex-brother, unless it's for money no one wants to text. I became aware of the content that was not posted, not only what did. For example, Tucker often sends me a joke about being the forgotten son, yet he's always with Opal and not me in group photos. Opal is holding a pie in Lorraine's Facebook post about being thankful for new traditions, and it's my grandma's recipe, the one she vowed never to share. Crazy. I thus made the decision to enter via the front entrance without waiting for them to be pleasant. I organized a family gathering, but not literally. I sent text to every member of the previous group conversation. Opal, who is not there, stated that we must discuss the cabin, the money, and all other matters. Tammy says, "If this isn't just another argument, I'll come." Tucker isn't acting like my circus. However, I inform him that it is. Simply put, you'd rather not get your hands filthy. Opal can manage it, Lorraine attempts to delay. No, this is for those who genuinely possess stuff, I say. I'm left on read by her. I inform them that I will be bringing all of my documents. Please show me the receipts. What ideas do you all have for the cabin and the accounts? Tammy arrives, very irritated. Tucker is running late. Lorraine is behaving as though she is in a dental office. Everything is printed out for me. Stacked folders. Not that I'm playing around. I begin by outlining the fundamentals. Look, I say. The cabin is not Opal's. She is not eligible to vote. She is not allowed to transfer funds. I show them the group conversations in which she is planning without my presence. The emails in which she is coordinating with the electricity provider. She's informing folks in the screenshots. I have no interest in the family. Every time I pay my part or am excluded from a decision, I show them. You'll need my signature, I say, if you wish to alter the way things operate. And until I'm respected, I won't sign anything. You're overreacting, yells Lorraine. Is just assisting since you're never present? You treat me more like a problem than a person, so I tell her I'm not around. According to Tucker, Opal makes things simpler, but no one wants a battle. Easier for whom, I ask. It's simpler for those who choose to act as though I don't exist. And for once, Tammy is on my side. Yeah, this is getting strange, she says. Opal is in charge of everything, but why? Because she cares. Lorraine says, all you do is complicate everything. We get into a fight, the voices are raised, there is no retreating. This is our family, not Opal's, Tammy exclaims, slapping her fist on the table. This is going too far. Lorraine pushes back her chair and gets to her feet, claims she isn't coping. Slams the door. Tucker makes an attempt to go. He is blocked by me. Say you're not going to bail? Don't grab me, he says, pushing me. I can't solve your problems. You want to be an adult, I tell him. Then pretend that it's hot. Like very sloppy. I don't mince words. I threaten to freeze the account until we resolve the issue if they continue to allow Opal to handle funds. The cabin is co-owned by me. I am protected by the law. And if you believe that I'm kidding. Give me a try. Tucker laughs. Claims that you wouldn't treat us badly. You've already let me down, I say. What is the difference then? The group conversation with Opal is then displayed as Tammy takes out her phone. Cruz is too irate according to all these communications, so let's just move on without him. I was completely unaware of this one. I didn't want to interfere, but this is getting out of hand, she adds. I glance at Tucker. He simply shrugs. Says, Crew, this is easier. Easy for you, not for me, I say. We're all just shouting now. When Lorraine returns, she threatens, I'll call Grandma's lawyer if you want to make things difficult. Check to see how you like it. Do it, I tell her. I will send all of my possessions. Can we just establish rules, asks Tammy. Could we simply agree? Does Opal not receive a vote? Tucker gives me a look and asks, okay, what do you want? Please stop acting like I'm dead. I say, she is your new brother too, it's really awkward. As if nobody were sobbing. However, it's evident that everyone is angry for various reasons. Peace is what Tammy wants. Tucker desires to go. Opal should be in charge according to Lorraine. I want my life back. Bottom line, I say. I'll take everything to a lawyer if Opal tampers with another account, signs my name, or otherwise attempts to make judgments regarding my stuff. Do you wish to fight? Enough being nice, Tucker declares. All right. After that, we'll simply follow the book. I'm sick of you guys, Tammy says. She walks away, slams the door. Lorraine refuses to look at me as she sits down. You did this, I tell them. You have to live with the fact that you chose her over me. I get to my feet. Tucker makes an attempt to obstruct me. I push him aside, pick up my folder, and leave. I'm angry when I get home, but I'm also strangely at ease. I am aware of my next course of action. I'm not playing a bluff. They want to use money and property to play games. I'll demonstrate to them what happens when you run afoul of someone who truly pays attention to details. It's amazing to see how quickly people change their ways when you're no longer helpful or convenient for them. Opal is what they desire. I won't let her take what is rightfully mine, but they are free to keep her. Never ever. After I flip the switch, there will be more updates. Keep an eye out. The last update. I therefore gave it 5 days following that chaotic family meeting. I kept thinking that someone would text to try to patch things up or give me the typical guilt trip, but I never got one. The group chats were identical. I'm not in Opal's name everywhere. Me getting tagged in nothing. I guess they thought I'd just give up and fade out so they could keep playing house with my ex running the show, but nah, not taking place. I started with the cabin. I pulled up all the doc's deed bills, the co-owner agreement Grandma typed up back in the day, all that. I double-checked every single payment I made, every signature, every message about repairs. I had it lined up so clean even Tucker couldn't ask. What they didn't realize is you can't just vote a co-owner out and hope they stop asking questions. I called the management office, told them to freeze any new changes. No repairs or bookings. Nothing moves without my sign-off. I told them to provide that in writing to everyone on the file. I sent the family group with the legal notification attached. No warning, no please. Just, if you want to utilize the cabin, come talk to me. Direct. Opal's not on the deed. She doesn't get to say. Oh, and BTW, no more assisting with bills. All payments need to go via the official account, which I now manage. Then I manage the family accounts. I went to the bank and removed my name off anything Opal even touched. I phoned the bank manager, described the scenario, and asked them to flag the accounts for third-party access. They stated they wanted a written request, so I dropped it off the same day. Mom texted me later, furious that her internet banking wasn't working the way Opal put it up. For once, speak to your own son, I said, not the daughter-in-law of your ex. She ended the call. I emailed Tammy, explained what I was doing and why, and advised her to speak with me if she wanted her portion of the cabin. Neither through Opal nor through Lorraine. She simply replied in writing. To be honest, I understand. I'm also sick of this. In an attempt to debate, Tucker called and said that I was penalizing everyone for not taking sides. You've already chosen, I said. When it comes to money or property, I'm just making sure you can't act as though I'm not present. Lorraine yelled at me over the phone, wondering how I could harm family members. I refused to back down from her attempts to guilt me over Grandma's desires. I was being vindictive, she said. No, I'm just enforcing what's actually legal, I said. The phone was slammed down by her. I had to laugh when I saw her post later that evening about how some people never grow up. Opal tried to call me. First time in months. I let it ring out. She texted, said, "Can we talk?" This is hurting people. I didn't respond. She sent another, said, "I'm just trying to help." Why are you making it so hard? I blocked her. The fallout was fast. Tucker began sending me messages within 2 days. Initially, I was furious. Then it's just desperate. The cabin trip is ruined, he said. Mom is freaking out. Lorraine is blaming everyone. Opal's crying. Nobody knows what to do. He said, "Can you please just fix it?" Everything is disintegrating. I told him I warned you. You made your choice. I'm not coming to the rescue. I'm just making sure no one erases me out of my out of my own life. Then Tammy called. She said, "Did you really freeze the accounts?" I said, "Yeah, I did." She said, "Honestly, I'm relieved. It's been messed up for months. They just let Opal do whatever because no one wants to deal with Mom and Lorraine." I told her if she wants to do things right, come to me. We'll figure out a system that doesn't involve random people running our stuff. She said she would. That's all I wanted the next weekend. I went for a run pass. My mom's place. Her car was there. Opal's wasn't. Lorraine's car was gone too. I didn't go in. I just kept going. Sometimes you got to let people deal with the mess they made. I'm not fixing it for you. I know people reading this are probably thinking, wow, harsh, but for if you let people treat you like you're disposable, they'll do it forever. My family wanted easy. Now they get hard mode. Opal wanted to play replacement. Now she's out of the game. I didn't break any laws. I didn't yell or threaten. I just used the facts and the rights I already had. You want to erase me? All right, but you're not getting my stuff or my silence. Thus, yes, guess I burnt the bridge. But TBH, it was already on fire. I just made sure nobody could walk back over it without asking first. No clue what the next holiday will look like. Don't really care. I got my life back and I'm not sharing it with traitors. If you're in the same spot, don't just sit there and take it. Remind people where the line is and don't be afraid to draw it in permanent marker. That's it for me. Hope somebody gets something out of this. Even if it's just the idea that you don't have to let people walk all over you for the sake of family. Sometimes you got to be the villain in their story to finally be the hero in your own. Done. Story 3. My son was left in the intensive care unit by himself. He will be all right. Mom explained that your brother's birthday occurs once a year. She pleaded with me for assistance after her heart failed 5 years later. Hi everyone. Prior to the start of today's video, I need your assistance. One of the greatest ways you can help us out is to subscribe since we've observed the channel is losing some of its popularity. It's simple, free, and helps us continue to provide you with amazing content. Your assistance is much appreciated. Together, let's continue to build this channel. Many thanks. The video subreddit will now begin. My son was taken to the intensive care unit 5 years ago. I let everything go. I couldn't miss one meeting though. I thus asked my parents over the phone if they could spend a few hours sitting with him. Yes, they said. My son was by himself when I returned. To celebrate my brother's birthday, they had departed. This is how it transpired. I am a 38-year-old man who has his own contracting business with a focus on commercial remodeling. I've been in company for 11 years, and getting here wasn't simple. My early years were essentially a master lesson in raising one child while obviously giving preference to another. It was my responsibility. The person who played varsity baseball earned straight A's and worked a part-time job since I was 15. Pete, my 33-year-old younger brother, received recognition for being able to put on his own shoes. I'm not being overly dramatic here. Dad was a good-paying electrical engineer, but he was the type of man who believed that expressing emotion was a sign of a non-man. Mom was an elementary school teacher and was always understanding of Pete's mistakes, but she was never understanding of mine. My mother questioned me what had happened to the B+ when I brought home a report card that included all A's and 1 B+. As a reward for trying, they would take Pete out for ice cream after he brought home C's and D's. After moving out at the age of 18, I worked as a construction worker while attending community college before transferring to Indiana University to get my business degree. I divided my time between classes at night and job sites during my 80-hour work weeks. I never requested money from my parents. I had saved up enough money by the age of 27 to launch my own contracting company. First, little tasks like constructing decks, remodeling bathrooms, etc. Has established a reputation for providing high-quality services at reasonable prices. Began receiving larger commercial contracts, retail spaces, restaurant build-outs, and office renovations. When I was hired to remodel the dental clinic where Lauren worked as a hygienist, I got to know her. She was intelligent, straightforward, and had a laugh that could light up a room. When I was 30, we were married. A year later, we had our son, Lucas. It was a nice life. The company was expanding. We purchased a home in a respectable area with top-notch schools. Even though I was working hard, I was still able to get home for supper most nights. Then at age 34, everything fell apart. And fool jumped a red light when Lauren was driving home from work doing 70 in a 35. On impact, she passed away. According to the police, she most likely had no idea what had hit her. In one moment, I'm a contented husband, parent, and entrepreneur. The next day, I'm organizing a funeral and attempting to explain to a bewildered 3-year-old why his mother isn't returning home. The initial weeks passed quickly. I recall sitting on Lucas's bed every night as he sobbed himself to sleep and inquired about his mother's return. I would keep my composure until he fell asleep, then walk downstairs and collapse. Naturally, my parents attended the funeral. Dad said she was a good woman while standing clumsily in his suit and giving me a single shoulder pad. Mom gave me a firm embrace and devoted the most of the ceremony to worrying over Pete, who required continual care since he was so distraught about the loss of his sister-in-law. After staying at our house for the reception, they said they had to go since Pete needed assistance moving into his new apartment. Pete's credit was destroyed by maxing out several credit cards, so my dad co-signed for that one. They didn't even give me a casserole. In the weeks that followed, neither Lucas nor I received a single call to see how we were doing. No offers to watch Lucas so I could finish off my job, or I guess spend an hour quietly grieving my wife. The day following the tragedy, Lauren's mother Beth traveled in from Portland and remained for 3 months. Despite having arthritis that made every action agonizing, she woke up every morning with Lucas and prepared his food. She was 65 years old. After dropping him off at preschool, I came home and did some washing, or prepared meals that might be saved for later use or cleaned. Late at night, when the stillness became too loud, she would sit with me. When she eventually had to return to Portland, she remained silent and simply existed. She was her sister's primary caregiver with Miss. She sobbed more intensely than I had witnessed since the burial. She returned every few months to spend time with Lucas, and she insisted that I phone her every day. I had to rebuild our lives piece by piece when Lauren passed away. Lucas was picked up from preschool by the part-time nanny I hired, and she stayed with him until I came home. I changed my work schedule so that I would be home by 6 o'clock. Most of the time. I gained knowledge about cooking more than simply spaghetti and burgers. We created new habits and discovered a new normal. I periodically contacted my parents mostly to allow Lucas to maintain some sort of relationship with his grandparents. Perhaps they might see him once every few months. They are always on time, usually for an hour or two at a restaurant where they would speak about Pete's newest business concept or spend most of their time on their phones. That just required a small initial investment. In other words, they have always been a narcissistic piece of art. However, I ended things permanently with them 5 years ago. It was an April morning. I recall this because I was preparing Lucas breakfast and mentally practicing my presentation for a significant client meeting that afternoon. He was enamored with dinosaurs and space when he was 6 years old and in the first grade. He was eating cereal at the counter and told me about a program we had seen the previous evening that had taught him that a T-Rex's enormous weight prevented it from running quickly. His spoon fell out of his grasp, clattering on the bowl as he abruptly stopped speaking. Before I could get to him, his eyes rolled back as I looked up from my coffee. He fell on the kitchen floor after sliding off the stool. After becoming stiff, his body began to violently convulse. I saw that he had bitten through his tongue as blood gushed from his nostrils. After Lauren passed away, I completed a first aid course. I did it as a way to feel less powerless in a world that had shown me how little control I truly have. After making sure he wasn't choking and turning him onto his side, I timed the seizure after it had gone on for 2 minutes without showing any signs of ending. This was awful, I knew. After picking him up, I snatched up my keys and hurried to the car. Still seizing, I placed him across the back seat and drove as if I were in a fast-paced pursuit. Blew through stop signs and red lights to make the 15-minute trip to the hospital in less than 7 minutes. I yelled for assistance as I drew up to the emergency door and took him inside. A doctor and a group of nurses hurried over in a trolley. His little body was still jerking blood and froth around his mouth as I placed him down. "He's been seizing for how long?" the physician inquired. I checked my watch and stated, "It's been about 9 minutes now." They hurried him back right away while yelling medical jargon that I couldn't comprehend. As they removed him, a nurse led me to registration. I stood there with his blood on my shirt, shakily filling out documents and answering questions mechanically. Before a doctor came out to speak with me, 4 hours had gone by. A lady in her mid-40s. Dr. Rivera had a straightforward demeanor and weary eyes. "Your youngster has bacterial meningitis, Mr. Wilson. It's quite serious. The membranes around his brain and spinal cord are inflamed as a result of the bacterium. This irritation caused the seizure. Strong antibiotics have been started for him, but the next 48 hours are crucial." She clarified that he will be admitted to the intensive care unit. They were worried about swelling in his head and elevated intracranial pressure since the meningitis had advanced quickly. They may need to perform a procedure to relieve the pressure if the antibiotics were unable to reduce the swelling in a timely manner. They wheeled Lucas up to the intensive care unit and I followed. He was not conscious. Connected to more machines than I could keep track of. He was breathing on a ventilator. Monitors beeped steadily as IVs were inserted into both arms, measuring every bodily function. In between conversations with nurses and doctors, I sat next to his bed and held his limp hand as I tried to comprehend how we had gone from dinosaur facts at breakfast to this nightmare in a matter of hours. I rescheduled everything on my calendar by making phone calls. My project manager took charge of the daily tasks. After I explained the situation, the clients were understanding, but I was unable to reschedule one meeting. We were on the verge of signing a 1.5 million contract to renovate a chain of upscale fitness facilities after 10 years of developing my business. Just for this one evening, the investors were flying in from Singapore to sign the documents and finalize the details. My presence starting at 6 p.m. was crucial to the entire transaction. Till 10 p.m. Carl, my business partner, was meeting with suppliers in Zurich that week. I was the only one who could sign off on the final terms. If I missed this meeting, there was a good chance the investors would walk. They had other contractors waiting in line. If we couldn't deliver, this contract would allow me to employ more workers, take on bigger projects, and most importantly, generate more financial stability for Lucas. After losing Lauren, making sure Lucas was cared for had become my primary concern. I contacted the chief nurse to ask about Lucas's situation. "He's stable for now," she replied. "The antibiotics are being provided and we're monitoring his intracranial pressure constantly. The neurologist will be making checks throughout the evening." Then I phoned my parents. They lived 15 minutes from the hospital in the same house I'd grown up in. "Mom, it's Dean," I said when she responded. "Lucas is in the ICU with bacterial meningitis. It's pretty serious. I need you and Dad to come sit with him for just 4 hours tonight while I finish this sale. It's critical." "Of course, Dean," she responded without hesitation. "We'll be there. Do not be concerned about Lucas. Pay attention to your meeting." I felt a sense of comfort as I heard her acquiesce so easily. They were Lucas's grandparents despite our tense connection. In an emergency, they would undoubtedly step up. They arrived at the hospital around 5 p.m. Dad greeted me with his usual stony nod. Mom pushed Lucas's hair back from his forehead and gave him a pat on the hand. "This is ours," she said. "Go take care of your business." I go over everything that the physicians were seeing with them. When medications were due, the nurses advised keeping an eye out for any indications of elevated blood pressure. I made a note of my client's address and my precise return time. "Give me a call right away if anything changes." "I mean anything," I said. "Dean, go." As she settled onto the chair next to Lucas's bed, Mom remarked, "It's critical for your future. If something changes, we'll give you a call." I thanked my parents once more, gave Lucas a forehead kiss, and departed for the meeting. Leaving him made me feel like trash. However, I had faith that my parents would remain with him. In spite of everything, I thought that in a real emergency, they act appropriately. An elegant downtown hotel served as the venue for the meeting with the Singaporean investors. When I got to the meeting room, Mr. Liang and his group were already waiting. I was still dressed in the same outfit from that morning while everyone else was dressed in immaculate suits, except for the bloodied clothing I had to change out of when I was in the hospital. "Mr. Wilson." Mr. Leon shook my hand firmly in greeting. "We can't wait to complete our collaboration." I expressed regret for how I looked and gave a quick explanation that I was totally focused on our discussion despite a family situation. After receiving a polite nod from Mr. Liang, we started working. Surprisingly, the discussions went smoothly. We worked out the final financial figures, spoke about schedules, and looked over architectural blueprints. By 8:30 p.m., they were prepared to sign the contracts as they were happy with everything. I checked my phone out of habit and saw that I had set it to quiet for the meeting. I saw the fact that there were no missed calls or messages as encouraging. Lucas needs to be steady. I looked at Mr. Liang. "You appear worried, Mr. Wilson. Is everything okay?" I was hesitant since I didn't want to ruin the meeting just before it was over. "ICU care is for my son." He held out his hand, but my folks are with him. "Say nothing more. Family comes first. If necessary, we can complete this tomorrow." I was surprised that he understood. "I guess we're about done here, but thank you. After we complete the papers, I will be able to respond to him." In the following half hour, we signed the contracts. Mr. Liang kept his hand on mine for a second longer than was required as we shook hands to seal the agreement. When he was young, my oldest grandson, Mr. Wilson, developed a serious illness. To spend time with him, I skipped a crucial meeting. My grandson made a full recovery, but that corporation went with another partner. Never once have I second-guessed my decision. I was very affected by his statements. After giving him my heartfelt gratitude, I picked up my briefcase and headed back to the hospital. Getting there at 9:10 p.m., I knew something wasn't right as soon as I got out of the elevator at the intensive care unit. The area surrounding Lucas's room was bustling with activity. I entered and found Dr. Rivera and a group of nurses encircling his bed. They were adding fresh IVs, changing equipment, and inspecting monitors. Bags. My parents are nowhere to be seen. When Dr. Rivera glanced up, her expression changed from one of professional concern to one of barely controlled rage. Where have you been, Mr. Wilson? For the past 3 hours, we have been attempting to contact someone. About 2 hours ago, your son's intracranial pressure rapidly increased. To relieve the pressure on his brain, we had to do an emergency ventricular ostomy. Finally, what I rushed to catch up in my thoughts. She explained that in order to install a drain and lower the pressure, we had to cut a little hole in his skull. Recognizing my perplexity. Nobody present to give their consent. We had to follow emergency procedures. He might have had irreversible brain damage or worse if we had waited any longer. As I tried to take in what she was saying, I stood motionless. My parents were meant to be present. At 5:30, I dropped them off here with him. The charge nurse Nick came forward. There was a mixture of frustration and pity on his face. Since approximately 6 to 15 p.m., sir, no one has been present with your son. We repeatedly dialed the numbers in his file. When we were unable to contact anyone, in order to continue with the required treatment, we put emergency procedures into place. I looked at my phone. In my haste to get to the meeting on time, I missed 17 hospital calls. During the negotiations, I had forgotten to check it after silencing it. I immediately called my mother. No response. Dad, I tried. The same outcome. I repeatedly phoned and left more frantic voicemails. You're where you left Lucas, but why? Give me a call back, ASAP. Lucas and I were sitting there while the ventilator pumped air into his small body and the new bandage was inserted into his head to release pressure. Dr. Rivera reassured me that without the emergency operation, they had just about caught the rise in time. He may have passed away or had irreversible brain injury. About midnight, my parents have not contacted me yet. To share an update with friends who might be interested in Lucas, I opened Facebook. I was really taken aback by the first post on my feed. A 33 balloon floats behind my brother Pete as he is surrounded by pals at Morton's Steakhouse downtown. Caption: the best supper ever on a birthday. Thank you for the surprise celebration, Mom and Dad. At 7:30 p.m., the picture was uploaded. Included in it, while my kid was struggling for his life with a drain in his skull to protect his brain from swelling, my parents were both grinning and lifting glasses in a toast. They were off to give Pete a surprise birthday supper. Something inside of me broke and then solidified as I gazed at their happy expressions in the picture. I spent a lot of time looking at the image. Everything is coming together. They hadn't even bothered to check on Lucas by calling the hospital. They were singing happy birthday and ordered appetizers when he could have passed away. Rose's rage inside of me was icy and illuminating. I noted the timestamps on the screenshots I took of the Facebook post. After that, I shut down the app and gave my son my whole attention. Lucas didn't wake up during the night. Every hour, the nurses checked his vitals and the ventricular ostomy drainage. Each time, they reassured me that his intracranial pressure was dropping and that he was stable. The antibiotics were starting to take effect. I didn't get any sleep. I held his hand while I sat in the chair next to his bed. My parents eventually entered the intensive care unit at 6 a.m., as if nothing had occurred. They had left me seated in the same spot the previous evening. Except right now. Lucas had a drain emerging from his skull and a bandage wrapped over his head. Dad was the first to speak. His voice was informal. How is he doing? All we did was go grab breakfast. Even I was startled at how icy my chuckle was. 12 hours of breakfast. Mom's expression tensed. What is the intended meaning of that? I swiveled the screen of my phone in their direction. Pete's post on Facebook remains active. It signifies this. Both of them froze. Dad was the first to recover. His look settled into the contemptuous one I was so familiar with. It was only for a few of hours. For months, Pete had been organizing this. Last night, they made a hole in my son's skull. My voice was little more than a whisper when I spoke. He could have perished. I trusted you, therefore I wasn't here to give my consent. Mom stood up. You're going overboard. Dean, this is a hospital. He was all okay. Doctors were everywhere. For the 33rd birthday of Pete, it only occurs once. The words struck me like a punch to the body, I could clearly see where Lucas and I were standing next to them at that precise time. My son's life would never be as significant as Pete's birthday supper. Get out, I replied. You're being overly dramatic now. Mom lost her temper. We assisted you, and you behave like this. You've never shown gratitude. Pete at least is grateful for everything we do for him. Get out, I yelled. This time I repeated more loudly. Our increased cries startled a security guard who materialized in the doorway. Is anything wrong here? Dad touched his mother's shoulder. Come on, he's always been like this, exaggerating little issues. Mom glanced back as they left. Never again call us for assistance. Never. I replied, don't worry, I will not repeat that error. I took a seat next to Lucas again when they had gone. A peculiar serenity descended upon me. Something had changed irrevocably. Surprisingly, it felt like independence when the final thread that bound me to my parents broke. Later that morning, Dr. Rivera stopped by to see how Lucas was doing. She changed his medicines, checked the ventricular ostomy site, and went over his most recent lab findings. She claimed he's stabilizing. The most recent cultures demonstrate that the antibiotics are effective, and the operation proceeded smoothly. We're still in the woods, though. For at least another 48 hours, we must keep a tight eye on him. Too worn out and emotionally spent to talk, I just nodded. With her clipboard in her lap, she took a seat on the chair beside me. As Lucas's physician, Mr. Wilson, I must share something with you. In anticipation of more terrible news, I looked up. She stated in a quiet but forceful voice that what transpired last night was a significant example of medical negligence. Without telling the medical staff, your parents left a critically ill child in the intensive care unit. She would have left the sentence hanging if we hadn't noticed the pressure rise at that precise moment. Everything is recorded in Lucas's chart, she added. The time they departed, the emergency procedure we had to follow, and our attempts to get in touch with you during that time. You have grounds if you wish to pursue this legally. Startled, I gazed at her. Do you believe that I ought to sue my own parents? She slowly looked into my eyes. Your son may have died as a result of what they did, in my opinion. In my 20 years as a doctor, I have witnessed far too many children suffer because adults failed to take their responsibilities seriously. I'm just stating that. I gave Lauren's mother, Beth, a call after she left. On the first ring, she responded. How is my boy doing? She inquired right away. To see how Lucas was doing, she called daily. I told her everything. The surgery, the meningitis. He was left behind by my parents for Pete's birthday supper. Without hesitation, she responded, I'm on the next flight. Until I arrive, don't leave his side. The next call came from Carl, my business partner. Prior to the meeting with the Singaporeans, I contacted him about the emergency. I assured him that the transaction was signed. Lucas, however, is in worse shape than we initially believed. The Singaporeans fully comprehend, he stated. This morning I received a call from Mr. Liang. He says great things about you, claimed that your handling of the matter demonstrated extraordinary character. They are totally dedicated to collaborating with us. Don't worry about anything but your son, he said after pausing. For a time, the company can function without you. We have decent folks. A nurse arrived with some paperwork that afternoon. Are you Dean Wilson? She gave me a business card after I nodded. Jason Mercer is this person. He is the hospital's lawyer. When you have a minute, he would want to talk to you. Jason was a sharp-looking, no-nonsense man in his 40s. He clarified that the hospital was required by law to notify the appropriate authorities of any child endangerment incidents. Your son's experience fits that description. The hospital will file a report, he added, but you also have other choices. He described the format of a civil litigation, the basis for mental anguish, child endangerment, and carelessness, the procedure and time frame for the possible damages I might pursue. He suggested that before making any judgments, consult your own lawyer. Don't wait too long, though. These issues are subject to statutes of limitations. I had decided by the time Beth came over that night. My parents had made it clear to me who they were and where Lucas and I were in their hierarchy of importance. I would now demonstrate to them that their decision had repercussions. Lucas was hospitalized for 2 weeks. His recuperation would be lengthy, but the meningitis had been detected in time to avoid irreversible harm. He had headaches, exhaustion, and light and sound sensitivity. Beth slept on the chair and never left our side. By his bed, arranging for friends to provide meals. Despite having arthritis, which made every movement agonizing, she was 65 years old and never complained. I had developed a method with my business. Every morning, Beth would remain with Lucas for 2 hours while I spent the rest of the day at the hospital. My project manager took charge of managing client meetings and job locations. Not a single contract was lost. During the second week, I was taken aback when Mr. Liang, the Singaporean investor, showed up at the hospital one morning. He insisted on moving our planning meetings to after Lucas was released from the hospital and brought a hand-carved wooden robot for Lucas. Simply, he responded, "Business can wait." I've been in your shoes. My daughter had leukemia 20 years ago. Because I refused to leave her side, I nearly lost a big contract. That business is currently my largest client. He gave me his card with his number on it. When you're ready, give me a call. The offer will remain in effect. We had a new routine once Lucas was eventually released from the hospital. Beth took up residence in my guest room. Until Lucas is able to stand again. Kevin and Marcus, two of my workers, began coming in on the weekends to assist with house maintenance and yard chores. While I caught up on work, I had been ignoring Kevin sitting with Lucas and teaching him card tricks and stories. When Lucas was stronger, Marcus brought his children over to play with him, providing him some typical childhood time. I met with Anthony Reeves, a lawyer who specializes in medical malpractice and personal damage litigation, 3 months after Lucas returned home. I provided all the paperwork, including screenshots of Pete's Facebook post, Lucas's medical records, incident reports from the hospital, and my phone logs with the hospital's missed calls. Anthony went over everything in detail. "This is a compelling argument," he stated. "I want to be clear, though. Family lawsuits are often messy. It quickly becomes personal. I said that the day they abandoned my son, they ceased to be my family. Nevertheless, you must be ready. They'll probably accuse you of leaving your son behind to attend a business meeting. They will attempt to downplay the events. They'll infuse it with feeling. The next week, we filed the complaint. Mental discomfort, child endangerment, and negligence. We requested compensation for Lucas's trauma, continuing care, and medical expenses. They were really taken aback by the initial court petition. Dad called furious over treachery in the family, and how Pete always made me envious. Are you suing us, your own parents? Give me an example of something you have done for me in the past 10 years. I'll wait, I said. All I needed was the stillness on the other end of the telephone. Mom attempted a new strategy, crying as she described how this would ruin the family and hurt your father. When that didn't work, she threatened to tell everyone how unappreciative you are as a son. I didn't bother to mention that I was prepared to pay that amount. I just hung up after saying, "See you in court." The case continued for more than a year. An expensive lawyer that my parents hired attempted to portray me as a careless father who left my child behind for a business meeting. However, Dr. Rivera's evidence regarding the emergency operation and my parents' abduction was indisputable, and the hospital records were damning. The ICU receptionist, nurses, and witnesses all recorded their early departure. Even the restaurant waiter who recalled them showing up for Pete's celebration and remarking on the adorable balloon arrangement they had brought. The last nail was Pete's Facebook post, which included his own deposition and the date and pictures. In it, he acknowledged that he knew my parents had left Lucas in the hospital so he could attend his surprise party. Instead, did you think about inviting them to stay with your nephew? During the deposition, Anthony questioned him. Pete gave a shrug. My birthday was that day. I could tell everything I needed to know from the judge's face during the testimony. Lucas's recovery progressed during the procedure. Slowly, the headaches stopped. He was full of enthusiasm again. He returned to school, joined his soccer team, and began learning karate. He never inquired about my parents, though. The judge's decision was unambiguous, and we prevailed. The defendant's acts, according to the court, demonstrated a careless disregard for the welfare of a kid with a serious ailment. This is a severe example of negligence that may have led to catastrophe, not just a family argument. $750,000 was awarded for Lucas's continued care, medical expenses, and psychological harm. In addition, the judge mandated that my parents cover all court expenses. Despite their lack of cash, my parents had a respectable retirement account and equity in their home. They would have to liquidate the majority of their money and sell their house as a result of the decision. Dad came over to me looking pale as we were leaving the courthouse. "We've been wrecked by you." "Flatly," he said. "I'm hoping you're happy." I stared at him, emotionless. "No, father. The instant you left Lucas, you destroyed yourselves. This is only the bill. The lawsuit's proceeds were placed in a trust for Lucas's future needs and education, with some money reserved for any further medical care he might need." Their money wasn't something I needed or wanted. I wanted to be held accountable for previous years. Lucas, who is now 11 years old, recovered completely from the meningitis and had no lingering symptoms following the lawsuit. He played competitive soccer, excelled academically, and had taken an interest in computer programming. Beth had purchased a modest home 10 minutes away from ours and had relocated permanently to Indianapolis. She had grown into the grandma Lucas deserved and joined him for supper 3 times a week. Marcus and Kevin were still good buddies. Holidays spent with our family. They would teach Lucas how to fish and become his honorary uncles, building a tree house with him, attending his school plays and soccer matches. The agreement with the Singaporeans has grown to a yearly commercial partnership worth $5 million. I became acquaintances with Mr. Lee Young and his business opening doors. I never imagined that was feasible. My company had grown into 3 states and now employed 45 individuals. Mutual acquaintances informed me that my parents had been compelled to sell their home and relocate to a modest apartment on the other side of town. Pete had moved in with them after all of his business endeavors failed. The court ruling had taken a toll on them, who were still making do with what little they had left. They had lost their attractiveness. They had little money saved for retirement after paying the settlement's legal costs. Dad had returned to work as a consultant, but there weren't many prospects at 70. Then one night, a number I didn't recognize called on my phone. Wilson. Mr. Mercy Hospital is this. Due to a major cardiac episode, your mother was hospitalized. She's requesting you. I sat there absorbing the words. Thank you for informing me. I understand. I took my time getting to the hospital. Rather, I helped Lucas with his schoolwork, wrapped up our supper, and put him to bed. After that, I parked in the same hospital garage where I had frantically hurried with Lucas years prior after driving slowly across town. Mom appeared frail and little as I entered her room. She was connected to machinery by cables and tubes. Dad looked every inch of his 70 years as he sat slouched in a chair next to her. When he noticed me, his head jerked up. Dean, I'm grateful. We need your assistance. I remained silent. Just had a look at 2 of them. Dad went on, your mom needs bypass surgery. Not all of it will be covered by our insurance. We had used up all of our savings. Pete, a dot. He walked away. Pete is unable to assist us. Mom extended a pallid hand. Although I am your mother, Dean, I am aware that we have had disagreements. Please assist us. There is nowhere else for us to go. I remembered Lucas's little bandaged fingers and the ventilator breathing for him while they ate birthday cake across town as I gazed at her outstretched hand. The operation. Dad pushed. The amount is $120,000, not protected by insurance. After your mother heals, we may gradually reimburse you just like you did with the judgment. Quietly, I asked. Dad became red. That was not the same. You were being vengeful there. Please, Dean, Mom muttered. I took a step toward the bed and gazed down at her. Remember how Lucas's brain swelled and doctors had to drill into his skull while he was resting in the intensive care unit? He had no one to grasp his hand. His loved ones were not present to speak for him. Because you prioritized Pete's birthday celebration over the life of your grandchild. Her eyes welled with tears. I apologize. Dean, I was mistaken. We were mistaken. Don't penalize me for a single error, please. I leaned closer. There was more than one error. I was shown exactly where I stood for the rest of my life. You are now aware of your position with me. I stood up straight. You'll be all right. Lucas. However, it was his birthday. Once a year, that is. Her expression of disbelief was priceless. After all this time, she was thrown back at her own words. Dad leaped to his feet. You're a cruel jerk. I turned to him calmly after everything we had done for you. Dad, name one thing. I have yet to receive a response. He became deflated. I moved to the door, sat down again, and stopped. Tomorrow, my assistant will deliver a $10,000 check. Enough to see a heart expert who can assist you in setting up a payment schedule. Is that all? Dad inquired astonishedly. Your mom could pass away. I turned to face them both. It's a hospital. She will be all right. I went on to say that the $10,000 was a present from Lucas. He told me to assist grandmother a little bit because we're different from them, not because she deserves it when I asked him what I should do. I had my lawyer deliver the check and the necessary documents the next day, absolving them of any further requests for financial assistance from me. I had written at the bottom, "Our connection is over now. Our account has been permanently closed." I watched Lucas play soccer with Marcus's children in the backyard that evening as Beth, Kevin, and Marcus sat on the deck. "Are you all right?" Beth squeezed my hand and asked. As I watched my son's face light up after he scored a goal, I nodded. Yes, everything will work out perfectly. I believed for years that family was about responsibilities and genetic ties. I've discovered that family is the one who is there throughout both the good times and the bad. Kevin, Beth, and Marcus. Liang Mister. These individuals who owed us nothing biologically showed up when it counted. I remember that time in the hospital. On occasion, the doctor informed me that they had no choice but to drill into my son's skull without getting permission from his parents. How my parents' actions may have cost Lucas his life or his future, and how I almost lost all that was important. Mom made it through her operation. A cardiologist who used to be one of my clients volunteered to do the treatment at a discounted charge, following my $10,000 donation. Not because they contacted me to express gratitude, but because he called to inform me that everything went smoothly. I am aware of this. A few months later, Pete attempted to contact and request money. His number was blocked by me. He once visited my office and discussed a surefire investment opportunity. Before he could continue proposing his next sure thing, security let him out. Recently, Lucas asked me if you had grandparents other than Beth. For school, he was working on a family tree project. I was honest with him, telling him that although my parents were still living, they were no longer involved in our lives because they had made decisions that made it clear they couldn't be trusted with his welfare. Did they treat you cruelly as a child? He inquired. I assured him it wasn't exactly mean, just absent in the ways that were important. He gave a nod. With that insight, children can occasionally expose your shortcomings. For example, Grandma Beth's legs hurt and Kevin still finds time to teach me things despite losing his kid. She still attends all of my games, though. That's exactly what I stated. My father sent me a letter last week. Mom didn't make it because she had another heart attack. Their church was the location of the funeral. Lucas and I were welcome to come, he said. I didn't go. I sent a card that read along with flowers. Despite everything, I did call her mother once, therefore I'm sad for your loss. The point is, I don't regret going away. I don't regret the lawsuit. Furthermore, I have no regrets about choosing to have a family rather than being forced to. Family actions don't happen because of blood. What I did was right for us, but I'm not saying it was right for everyone. Knowing when to leave is sometimes the most crucial lesson for a family. Story 4. Monica is my name. I was promoted last month and I'm 33. For the position of Regional Operations Manager. I've been working really hard. For someone who began as an intern, it's not bad, is it? I was able to start saving for the house at last because of the large income increase. I've been having dreams about it. Something with a backyard, where I could grow some tomatoes and maybe some flowers. I kept it a secret from my family. If you knew them, you would understand why that could seem strange. Instead, I invited my co-workers to a party at O'Malley's downtown. Dave from accounting finally made an appearance for Monica, and Sarah brought those adorable mini quiches that everyone adores. I held out my drink and they all cheered. May she always remember us small folks. I chuckled, but I was secretly wondering why I hadn't said anything to my parents or my sister Lisa. My family has a tendency to treat me like their own ATM. Dad needed $800 for urgent roof repairs just last month. Mom's washing machine broke again during the third emergency of the year. Who do you think purchased the new one? Yes, I do. And let's not even talk about Lisa. Lisa is 36. Tom's wife, has 2 children, Kaylee and Jaden. Despite working, they are perpetually broke. Could you assist with Jaden's karate lessons this month, Monica? We're a little short. Monica Kelly requires new shoes, dance shoes, and rental housing. Deal. It never stops. The problem is that Lisa has always been the best kid. She was the center of the world when I was growing up. She received the college fund, the newer clothes, and the larger room. Yes, you heard correctly. They paid for her education out of my college funds. Lisa needs it more. They said you're smart, Monica. You'll figure something out. So I did. I worked 3 jobs through college, graduated with honors, and clawed my way up the corporate ladder while Lisa dropped out junior year because she got pregnant. Now she posts on Facebook about how hard it is being a mom while I pay for her kids' activities. 2 weeks after my promotion party, my phone rang. Mom, Monica. Honey, we're planning a family gathering this Saturday at Lummy Zone. You know that fancy French place downtown? It's a surprise. So don't tell anyone. A family gathering. What's the occasion? Oh, you'll see. Just be there at 7 p.m. Okay? And dress nice. That was weird. My family never did fancy restaurants. Pizza Hut was about as upscale as we got, but whatever. Maybe Lisa got a promotion or something? God knows it wouldn't be to celebrate anything I did. Saturday came and I took an Uber. Ptolemy Zone. The place was even fancier than I remembered. White tablecloths, crystal glasses, the works. I walked in and nearly had a heart attack. The entire extended family was there. Ed Carroll from Phoenix, Uncle Mike from Boston, cousins I hadn't seen since high school. At least 30 people all dressed up and sitting at this massive table in the private dining room. Monica Mom waved frantically. Over here, sweetie. I made my way over, feeling like I was in some weird dream. The empty chair next to Mom had my name card on it. As soon as I sat down, everyone started clapping. What's going on? I whispered to Mom. She just smiled and tapped her wine glass with a fork. The room went quiet. Thank you all for coming. She began giving me this look. I couldn't quite read. We're here tonight to celebrate something very special. Our Monica has received a big promotion at work. More clapping. My stomach dropped. Now Mom continued her voice. Honey sweet. But with that edge I knew too well. Monica didn't tell us about this wonderful news. She chose to celebrate with her work friends instead of her family. But we found out anyway, didn't we? Lisa leaned over, smirking. Cousin Beth saw you at that bar. She told Mom everything. Great. Just great. Mom raised her glass. So tonight we celebrate properly. Order whatever you want, the most expensive dishes, the finest wines. Nothing's too good for our Monica's special night. The relatives went nuts. Menus flew open and suddenly everyone was ordering lobster, filet mignon, bottles of champagne. People who presumably couldn't pronounce half the meals were pointing at the priciest ones and asking the server what they were. I sat there with a glass of water, my hunger gone. This wasn't a celebration. This was a penalty. Dad bought 3 bottles of the most costly wine on the menu. Carol. But the seafood tower. Uncle Mike ordered 2 appetizers and 3 meals to sample everything. About an hour in the restaurant, manager approached our table. She bent down to speak to Mom. Excuse me, ma'am, who will be managing the bill this evening? The current sum is fairly large. Mom didn't skip a beat. She pointed at me and yelled loudly enough for everyone to hear. Oh, Monica will take care of it. She is our own ATM. Everyone at the table burst out laughing. Anger and embarrassment burned across my cheeks. These individuals who were members of my own family were treating me like a credit card with no limits. I didn't create a scenario, though. I didn't leave all at once. As I watched them place more costly orders, I simply grinned and sipped my water. Let them enjoy themselves. My plans were different. It took an additional hour to finish the supper. I saw my family shove things they couldn't even pronounce into their faces. Cousin Jerry asked the waitress if the foie gras he had ordered came with ketchup. Marie also complained that the 200 Wagyu steak was too tiny. I continued to check my phone under the table and sip water in the meanwhile. I had a strategy in mind, and the more irate I grew, the more obvious it seemed. Why don't you eat, Monica, loud enough for everyone to hear? Mom asked. Place an order. Be confident while handling your own finances. More giggling. I made an effort to grin. I can handle water well. Regards. Lisa said, oh, come on. Have a little fun. Now you're able to afford it. Tom, her husband, agreed enthusiastically. Yes, Monica, thank you for taking care of us all. This is ideal because the kids have been discussing purchasing new iPads. It nearly made me chuckle. They were already figuring out how to spend more of my money, of course. The waiter finally showed up with the check around 9:30. He gave it to Mom, who pretended to look at it. Well, well, she said. $2,987.43 is the total. However, isn't that nothing for our Monica now? With this arrogant expression on her face, she slipped the check over the table to me. After carefully inspecting it, I placed it back on the table. I grabbed my handbag and said, I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Avoid taking too long. After me, Dad phoned. The employees are waiting. I carefully made my way to the restroom, but I waited outside the door rather than entering. The ideal diversion was the huge gathering of people arriving for a birthday celebration. Slipping out the front door, I breathed in the refreshing night air. I was walking along the street with trembling hands, but not because of terror. I was enraged. To put me in my place and shame me for daring to keep anything private, these people, my own blood and blood, had planned the entire incident. I phoned an Uber 5 minutes later, as I waited. My mother was phoning when my phone began to vibrate. I chose to disregard it. By the time I arrived at my flat, the travel home had taken around 25 minutes. My phone was acting strangely. Mom, Dad, and Lisa's calls were missed. I even didn't recognize some of the numbers. The texts began to come in. Where are you, Mom, Dad? This isn't funny, Monica. Now return Lisa. You didn't actually go, my God. The manager is saying that the cops will be called, Mom. You're such a self-centered brat, Lisa. I laughed as I browsed through them. One followed, which made me laugh even more. Mom, the manager threatens to call the police until someone pays. Return here. I walked to the kitchen and placed my phone on quiet. I prepared a decent meal for myself because I was famished from all that water drinking. A wonderful glass of wine and pasta with garlic shrimp. The quality wine, not the inexpensive ones. Usually I purchased. Uncle Mike Malika continued to text. It had to be charged to your mother's credit card. Very poor actions. And how could you humiliate your parents in this way, Carol? A relative by chance. I suppose that people are genuinely changed by money. Disgraceful. I ate my spaghetti and read each one. The topic was the same for all of them. I had changed. I was greedy and self-centered. None of them brought up the fact that they had all placed the most costly orders on the menu in order to leave me with a huge bill. I entirely shut off my phone after supper and went to bed. I slept better than I have in months. Around 9 in the morning on Sunday, I woke up. I then switched my phone back on. 47 calls were not returned. 83 text messages. After brewing coffee, I took a seat and read the highlights. Around midnight, Mom had sent a lengthy message. Your immature actions forced me to charge $3,000 to my credit card. I am very disappointed, as is your father. Lisa is correct. You turn into a monster. We anticipate that you will deposit the funds into my account right away. It's unbelievable that you would do this to Mom and Dad, Lisa. Following all that they have done for you, my children were giddy with anticipation for the meal. You also ruined it. You're not my childhood sister. Tom even added his voice. Monica, you're really uncool. Now everyone has expenditures. Your stunt has cost Mom $3 grand. When the doorbell rang, I was halfway through my second cup of coffee. Then the beating started. Monica, get out. We are aware that you are inside. The voice of Dad. Fantastic. I looked at the individuals. Lisa, Mom, and Dad all have angry expressions. I inhaled deeply before opening the door. It was like a SWAT squad charging in. Dad began shouting about family values and respect as Mom pushed the restaurant receipt in my face. Lisa simply stood there and shook her head as if I had killed her. You owe me $987.43 and $2,000. Transfer it now, Mom yelled. I burst out laughing. I was unable to resist. All of them paused and gazed at me. Why is it so funny? Dad insisted on this. I pointed to each one as I said, the entire thing. I didn't inform you about my promotion, so you arranged up the supper as a punishment. You invited 30 guests, said in public that I was your personal ATM, and instructed them to order everything they want. You're upset with me now because I didn't comply. Mom's cheeks flushed. You know we were having a party. I was learning a lesson from you. Congratulations, then. I discovered it. I will not give another nickel to any of you from now on. I will no longer be your ATM. Do you wish to belittle me? All right. Pay for your own lighting. The quiet was lovely. They simply looked at me as though I had grown a second head. You. That is not possible. At last, Lisa stumbled. I have costs for my children. Next, the budget. Get a second job, please. Give up purchasing nonsense. You're not in need. I don't give a damn. I am no longer concerned about your financial issues. Mom gave a passionate squeeze to her chest. Following everything that we have done for you. What precisely? Give my college fund to Lisa. While she partied, make me work 3 jobs to pay for education. Consider me a walking cash cow. During the previous decade. Yes, I appreciate all of that. You're acting absurdly. Dad said. Family is helpful. Family. Really? How recently have any of you assisted me, while I worked 16-hour days to pay for my education? When I needed a place to stay in between residences, where were you? Have any of you made an offer? No. But as soon as I began earning a respectable living, we were family once more. I approached and held open the door. Everyone go out. Think of it as a $3,000 lesson in discipline. Perhaps the next time you try to publicly embarrass someone who has been supporting you, you'll reconsider. Too startled to dispute more, they departed. However, I knew this was not the end. By no means. It was comparatively peaceful for 2 days. Then the text began anew. Mom? Monica, we must speak. This has gotten out of hand. The children want to know why Appy Monica despises us, Lisa. Do you want it that way? Your mother's credit card bill is coming up, Dad. Be sensible. The last time we spoke, I solely responded to Mom. The price was $3,000. I'll move on. Lisa attempted something unusual on Wednesday morning. Some individuals lose sight of their origins, she said on Facebook. Karma never forgets, but money transforms individuals. My family is in my prayers at this trying time. All of our common acquaintances understood precisely who she was referring to, even though she didn't identify me. My phone began ringing with messages from folks I hadn't spoken to in a long time. Monica, hello, post says. Is everything all right? What's the tea, girl? Lisa is being very evasive. I just wanted to say hello. Family matters may be difficult. I paid them all no attention. Let Lisa act like the victim. I needed to get some work done. And Thursday afternoon is a house to preserve. Janet? My cousin called. Despite attending the event, she didn't say anything. Please don't hang up, Monica. I simply wanted to let you know that I understand. They made a mess of what they did. That caught me off guard. Do you? Yes. That evening, I merely ordered a salad. The whole incident made me feel strange. How your mother made the announcement, as though you were a cash register. It was incorrect. Then why did you remain silent? She let out a sigh. Your mother is like that, you know. Patricia is never crossed. You're right. Mom had a knack for getting everyone to line up. In any case, Janet went on, I just wanted you to know that the family is pretty agitated, but not everyone thinks you're the bad guy here. Your mother has been playing the victim by phoning everyone. She has, of course. Additionally, Lisa is giving the impression that you are punishing Jaden and Kaylee by informing others that you are cutting off the children. I gave a snort. Both of the children's parents work. They will be all right. I looked at Facebook once more after we hung up. Last class today, Lisa captioned a picture of Jaden wearing his karate gear. When family disappoints you, certain dreams must come to an end. It was almost remarkable how well it was manipulated. I continued browsing after taking a snapshot of it for my records. A fresh round of texts arrived on Friday. My attitude and lack of family values suddenly caused relatives I hardly knew to worry. Someone who purchased the Wagyu steak gave Emery a lengthy text message stating that wealth isn't just about money. I had blocked around 15 numbers by Saturday. Then Dad Monica sent an email. Your actions have caused much pain to both your mother and me. This is not how we brought you up. Lisa finds it difficult to explain to the kids why they are and were abandoned. Kaylee is unable to go to dance camp this summer, and Jaden has to give up karate. Do you truly want this? As long as you apologize and start assisting the family again, we'll overlook your restaurant stunt. In 2 weeks, your mother's credit card statement is due. Do the right thing, please. Dad love. I started writing a reply, then stopped. I could publish something different instead. I have all of your voicemails, emails, and texts from the last week stored, Dad. I'll be getting in touch with a lawyer for a cease and desist order if the harassment persists. I will not be answering any more financial communications. This is my last correspondence about this issue. I blocked Lisa's and Monica's email accounts after keeping their mothers. The weeks that followed were odd. They were peaceful yet stressful. I kept waiting for them to return to my house, but they never did. Perhaps they were preparing something else, or perhaps the lawyer's threat was effective. My escape was work. My team was doing fantastically, and my new role kept me occupied. We secured 3 significant clients, and my supervisor hinted at the possibility of another promotion. Additional funds for the housing fund. I began perusing real estate listings. About an hour outside of the city was a charming craftsman-style property. It has a large backyard, 3 bedrooms, and even a greenhouse. Perfect for garden enthusiasts, the description stated. I put it on my bookmarks. Lisa continued her social media effort every few days in the meanwhile. One more post that is passive-aggressive. The hardest lesson is to teach children that family isn't trustworthy. When individuals reveal their true selves to you, have faith in them. I'm grateful for the genuine people who remain when things get difficult. In the end, her friends said things like, "Remain strong, you deserve better," flooded in. I was unfriended by several of our mutual acquaintances. In any case, I would rather lose phony friends than continue to support Lisa's extravagant lifestyle. I ran across Mrs. Chen from my previous apartment complex at the grocery store one day. Monica. How are you, my love? I was informed of the family's troubles. Fantastic. Mrs. Chen Neal, too. I'm all right. Actually, concentrating only on work. She gave me an arm pat. Arm. My niece experienced something similar, you know. Since she was the prosperous one, her brother expected her to cover the cost of his wedding. The family erupted when she refused. But what do you know? They all came around after 5 years. People occasionally have to learn how to support themselves. How did she respond to it? Guilt trips, I mean. Mrs. Chen grinned. No is a whole statement, she recalled. Additionally, loving someone does not entail becoming bankrupt for them. Over the following 3 days, I gave that a lot of consideration. Though love shouldn't have a cost, I did love my family in spite of everything. I made an offer on the Craftsman house 3 months after the restaurant incident. The following day, my realtor phoned. They agreed that I would close in 30 days. I kept my family members in the dark. I didn't make any internet posts about it. This was my ambition and my accomplishment, and I wasn't going to share it with individuals who thought of me as nothing more than a financial account. Mom texted me again the day I signed the paperwork. Next month is Cousin Beth's wedding. We must talk about your present to the pair. A minimum of $500 from prosperous relatives is a family custom. I didn't answer. Rather, I grinned as I glanced at my new house keys. A mail forwarding address is required. On a bright Saturday morning, moving day arrived. I had employed expert movers. I was not going to beg my relatives for assistance. I discovered all of our special daughter's birthday cards from Mom and Dad as I was packing up my apartment. You make us so proud, one person stated. Yes, exactly. I'm pleased with my bank account. The new mansion could have been even finer than the photos showed. There were raised vegetable beds and old fruit trees in the rear. Even though the greenhouse required some repair, I could already picture rows of herbs and vegetables. I owned this, mine alone. No one could make me give it up by guilt. During the first week, I unpacked and got settled. My neighbor brought over some handmade cookies on Tuesday. Greetings from the neighborhood. My name is Helen. Knock if you need anything. Regards, my name is Monica. These have a wonderful scent. It was pleasant. That's just plain undemanding compassion. The family turmoil took an intriguing turn 2 months after I moved into my new house. Janet, the cousin, called once more. This will be unbelievable to you. I said, she said. To talk about the Monica problem, your mom invited you to another family meal. Here's the problem, though. She said she could no longer afford to treat everyone, so she sought to make them pay their own costs. I couldn't contain my laughter. How did it go? Yes, that was a catastrophe. Carol requested water and a side salad, and Uncle Mike left after seeing the pricing. In about half an hour, everything collapsed. People were already departing as your dad attempted to deliver a lecture on family values. And Lisa. Monica. I'm very sorry. She made the huge revelation that she and Tom couldn't afford their present apartment and would have to relocate to a smaller one. Well done. They could learn how to make a budget. In fact, she made an effort to distribute a contribution jar for their moving costs. No one contributed anything. Janet shared this wonderful rumor when I was printing my roses. The garden was progressing well. In the greenhouse, the tomatoes were already in bloom when I planted the herbs last week. Janet went on, "Oh, and the best part. Tell Monica we forgive her," your mother stated when she requested me to speak with you about rejoining the family. I mean, they pardoned me. I suggested that she perhaps apologize to you first. When we were done speaking, she hung up on me. I sat on my back patio and brewed myself some tea with fresh mint from my garden. It was a nice life. I had a wonderful job, a lovely home, and no financial burden from providing for ungrateful family members. A few weeks later, I ran into Amy, a buddy from high school, in the grocery store. "Monica, how are you, my dear?" On Lisa's Facebook. I witnessed all of that turmoil. Amy, hello. Yes, it has been fascinating. I've been waiting for you to confront them for years, girl. Do you recall being forced to see Lisa's children during your own award ceremony in high school? Don't remind me. Additionally, you had to take the bus to your real work while they used your car for a week to transport Lisa to job interviews. I had nearly forgotten about it. Amy hugged me. Well done. Really, I'd want to go have coffee someday. I swear not to beg for money. We both chuckled. Reconnecting with someone who was aware of my past but didn't condemn me for defending myself felt fantastic. I received an unexpected email from Lisa 6 months after the event at the restaurant. The topic line was crucial. "Read this, please. Monica, I have something to tell you. I am going through a divorce. For more than a year, Tom and his coworker have been having an affair. Last week, he moved out after depleting our joint account. The children are inconsolable. I'm not sure what to do, even though I know you despise me at the moment. After assisting with Uncle Mike's DUI legal bills, Mom and Dad are penniless, and I'm the only one with 2 kids who can hardly buy groceries. I'm not requesting cash. I simply wanted to share it with someone who might know what it's like to be alone. Regarding the restaurant, I apologize. Lisa, I apologize for everything. I spent a lot of time looking at the email. I intended to disregard it in part. While everyone else received assistance, the other portion recalled what it was like to suffer alone. I apologized for Tom and responded back, Lisa, "That's terrible. You are not hated by me. I simply could not continue to be treated like an ATM. Look after the children and yourself." Monica. Postscript. A very covert food bank is located on Maple Street. When I was broke in college, they came to my aid. I made no financial offer. I didn't kick her when she was down, but I also didn't welcome her to my new home. Mom made a call a week later. She left a voicemail, but I didn't answer. "It's Mom, Monica. I had something to say. Look, I'm aware that we haven't done a good job, since your father and I are having difficulties, since the incident at the restaurant. And now for Lisa's predicament. Perhaps we depended too much on you. Perhaps we do. In any case, I hope all is well with you." There was no apology. It was the closest she had ever come to taking responsibility, but not really. I didn't return the call, but I did keep the message. Rebuilding some bridges takes time, if they are ever rebuilt. I shared one picture on social media a year after purchasing my home. My garden alone in full bloom. Suggestions for the mill address and mill house photos. Only veggies and flowers. Amy said, "Your garden is beautiful." It was written by Janet. Living your life to the fullest. I was shocked when Lisa said, "Beautiful." On our balcony, the children and I planted a little herb garden. We were inspired by you. Although I appreciated her comment, I didn't respond. Little steps. Right now, I'm content. That second promotion has paid off my house sooner than I anticipated. I have enough vegetables from my garden to share with my neighbors. Every Sunday, Helen teaches me how to bake her cookie recipe while we drink coffee. My family comes to mind occasionally. Janet gives me tidbits of news. Dad started working part-time. Mom is using Facebook Marketplace to sell goods. As I had always desired, Lisa is working 2 jobs and managing to survive without me. We may never be a true family again, but I'm not sure. Perhaps we never were. However, I am aware that in the long term, establishing boundaries helped me maintain my financial stability, my sanity, and maybe even my connection with them. They needed to realize that I was more than just a piggy bank. Healing takes time, according to my therapist. She is correct. But I know I made the correct decision every morning as I go through my garden. I no longer use the ATM. My name is Monica, owner of a home, a gardener, regional head. Yes, I received another promotion. And last